couple of weeks ago, I walked to my first period class, and surprised, I realized I would be writing an informative speech. Without missing a beat, I jumped right onto the topic of procrastination. I myself am a persistent procrastinator, and knew that procrastination had become a growing issue with teens and struggling adults. But why? I began to explore my main points. I wanted to know what it was and why so many people are affected. Next, everyone procrastinates for different reasons, so I started to explore the different types of procrastinators. Finally, I looked at the statistics and side effects, and I was blown away. However, despite being interested in the topic, I still procrastinated. First, it was my friends. Then, it was nice out. Next, I got hungry. And after that, I wanted to name the ladybug on my wall. Then decided I needed to get a pet goldfish. So after researching everything I needed to keep my goldfish alive, I got distracted by one delicious looking pizza. So now, here I am, standing in front of you today, doing what I do best, waiting it. First, we'll dive right into what procrastination really is. DariusFox.com defines procrastination as the act of putting off work for no particular reason. Procrastinators deliberately put off or delay important tasks despite the fact that they know they'll suffer from it long term. They have been linked to having unstable or unmanageable emotions. Many psychologists state that procrastinators feel real pain when it comes to completing undesired tasks. For instance, most students dread doing their homework, but for procrastinators, they associate doing their homework with a negative emotion. Therefore, every time they sit down and try to do their homework, they have the anticipation pain of this negative emotion. And they will purposely look for an activity they enjoy doing instead. PsychologicalScience.org explains a psychological test performed by two famous psychologists, Tice and Ferrari. It goes as follows. Students were brought into a lab and were told at the end of the session they would be performing a conjugative test, or a puzzle. So they split these students in half, and for half of these students, it was told it would be a conjugative puzzle. So they struggled with trying to figure out what they were going to do. And for the other half, they told them it was just going to be a puzzle for fun. Then they were given a brief intermission period where they were allowed to either study for this puzzle or play games like Tetris. Had the students who were given it to them, it was described as a conjugative puzzle, always procrastinated, and they would just procrastinated. And then the ones who were described just as a fun puzzle, they behaved just like non-procrastinators. So despite how procrastination may seem behavioral and developmental, there's actually been scientific research associating it to a past gene. SolvingProcrastination.com elaborates. Researchers have identified a gene that associates it with the release of dopamine, a neurotransmitter that plays a crucial role in people's ability to regulate their behavior. Non-procrastinators have a version of this gene that causes them to make really high baseline levels of dopamine, which allows them to constantly self-regulate their behavior and start working on tasks early. Controversially, procrastinators have a version of this gene which causes them to have relatively low baseline levels of dopamine. When they're under stress, this causes procrastinators to postpone tasks until right before the deadline, at which point they become stressed enough that their brain releases extra dopamine, which they need in order to bring themselves to get started. A large majority of procrastinators strongly believe putting off work until the last minute, that they can produce a better outcome. These procrastinators heavily rely on the adrenaline to keep in to help them to complete the task at hand. Short term, this is very effective for those who choose to use this method. However, long term, it has been proven to have negative effects on the overall health. Medical practitioners have linked disorders like ADHD, passive-aggressive tendencies, obsessive-compulsive disorder, depression, and anxiety to chronic procrastinators. Next, follow along to find out which type of procrastinator you are. Like people, procrastination comes in all shapes and sizes. It is often unique to the person. For some, procrastination is just an annoying habit. For others, it becomes an adaptive lifestyle. But why? According to psychologicalscience.org, there are two types of procrastinators, positive and negative. The positive side has to do with adrenaline. Positive procrastinators are often more rebellious and thrill-seeking. They have strong impulses. Many positive procrastinators tend to have a very live-in-the-moment attitude. They are impulsive and almost always walk into a room with confidence. But they struggle with getting distracted. However, they know they will get it done. Negative procrastinators struggle in the exact opposite way. Procrastination is not always a choice. These procrastinators often have a hard time getting out of bed or waking up in the morning. Instead of getting distracted by finding other ways to enjoy life, they focus on problems or conditions they have, like anxiety or depression. Negative people struggle with getting work done or procrastinate for fear that they won't be good enough. Finally, we'll look into the statistics and side effects. BrettandGalley.com states that 20% or 1 in 5 people are heavy procrastinators, and 85 to 95% of college and high school students say that they've procrastinated. 43% of DSU students have admitted that they procrastinated for so long it's just a second nature. 60% of students procrastinate on papers like this one, more than any other assignments. Author Braden Galley mentions that 71% procrastinate on almost strictly gen ed classes. Now that you have the statistics, it's time to dive right into the side effects. Darius Fox and SolvingProcrastination.com elaborate on the long-term effects of procrastination. Long-term or chronic stress can lead to depression, anxiety, heart disease, high blood pressure, abnormal heart rhythms, heart attacks, obesity, or eating disorders. And this is especially problematic since some of these side effects can increase people's tendency to procrastinate. This means that there are situations where procrastinators enter a problematic cycle where side effects just begin to worsen, and many procrastinators have no idea that this cycle exists. They just keep cycling. So in conclusion, I nailed it. We covered what procrastination was, as well as the 2 types of procrastinators. Next, we slid right into statistics and side effects. Now that you know all about procrastination and what it can do, maybe you'll think twice before, you know what, I'll finish this later.